Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. Quickly, we're sorry this episode is so late this week. I was on vacation, so we're not recording until Thursday. And it's been a very busy news week on multiple fronts, but we're very glad to be getting back into the studio. Starting next week, we're going to a 2 times per week format. We will have episodes coming out Tuesday and Thursday morning, and a chance to kind of recap the weekend on Tuesdays, look ahead, and maybe tackle some other issues that are not necessarily as directly connected to the news cycle on Thursdays. Josh, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, Charlie. Thanks. How about you? Have the vacation hangover?
I wouldn't necessarily say hangover as much as I would say just like, I'm looking forward to getting back to work, but I was in the Pacific time zone, so now I'm back on the East Coast. We're recording here in the morning, so I'm a little sleepy still, but we're gonna get moving. I have a quick story for you from my trip related to disc golf. I did not play any disc golf on my trip. The other people I with were not disc golfers, so it didn't really make sense for me to bring my discs. I was in Colorado. I was skiing at Arapahoe Basin, some late season skiing, and I walked into multiple places that had that were just like stores, just regular stores that had disc golf discs for sale, including at Arapahoe Basin's mid-mountain restaurant. It's like the middle of winter still there. It's like snow. And they just have a giant rack of disc golf discs. To me, I think Colorado, obviously a great disc golf state, tons of cool courses. I imagine they have a course at A Basin in the summertime, given that they're selling discs there. But I'm not talking about like going to Dick's Sporting Goods. Like, I'm just talking about like regular places selling discs. This is just, to me, a sign of the continued expansion and awareness of disc golf as like a more mainstream activity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think just for people, and I think that kind of exposure is the best exposure, right? Like, it's easy to look and see that and just wonder what that display is, and easier to access, pick it up, and give it a shot. So I'm great to hear about it. I'm going to have to visit Colorado.
How long until it's like Finland where you can buy disc golf discs at the grocery store?
Too long. However long it is, it's too long.
That we are still a ways from that. Let's temper our expectations. Well, we got a fantastic show, and let's not bury the lead. Paige Pierce just won her 4th U.S. title. That's a record in FPO, and she dominated. If you had questions about whether Paige Pierce was still, at the top of the elite scene, they're answered. I mean, come on, folks. Like, she comes out and she doesn't miss a circle one putt all weekend. Honestly, I don't think I have ever seen that from like the winner of a tournament, like, ever in FPO, and certainly at a major. Like, this is just an amazing feat on its own, let alone the fact that she ended up winning by 13 strokes. And that's not to say that it wasn't interesting. Coming into the 3rd round, she only had a 2-shot lead over Haley King, but there was no battle. It was over after like 3 holes, 2 holes even. Paige comes out, throws an absolute dart of a drive on hole 1. Haley King flips it over too far right, ends up taking a bogey. Pierce takes a birdie. It's a 4-stroke lead. Then Pierce birdies 2. Haley King's drive a little off again on hole 2. Boom, it's a 5-stroke lead, and that was pretty much all she wrote. By the time you get to hole 6, Haley King takes a double bogey. Pierce birdies. It was over. And it's kind of too bad, Josh, because we got robbed of a true Pierce King battle, which honestly we haven't, surprisingly, we haven't really seen that much of. Like, they've both won tournaments, but the last time that I really remember them kind of battling head to head, you have to go all the way back to last year, Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, when Hailey King ends up coming out on top. And it's too bad that we didn't get it. But I think, to me, this just like cements where we're at, which is that Paige Pierce is still very clearly the world number one. Hailey King going to be the next big thing, arguably already a big thing, but still isn't going to ascend to the throne in FPO yet. Not there yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do want. I mean, so the first thing, I was trying to think about what is it like in what sport do you have that kind of dominance in a championship, a major, right? Something of that caliber. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I can't, in MPO, I can't remember the last time 13 strokes ever happened, if it ever has happened. You probably have to go back to Climo. I might be wrong about that. People with a lot better disc golf history than me are going to correct me on that. I know that.
What we need is the search feature, the data, Elias Sports Bureau stats thing where you just go in and query the database.
Yeah,
see, we will have that.
That's what I need. Anyway, it doesn't in major golf. It doesn't happen. And I'm like, when was the last time something like this happened? And the last time I can think of it as a avid Denver Broncos fan was back when we just got utterly throttled by the Seahawks. And I'm like, yeah, that's something that's an equivalent here. Paige Pierce, start to finish on round 3.
I'll never forget that because there was the safety on the first play of the game after the kickoff. And the bettors made millions. Because people bet on the safety as the first score at 15-1 or something.
Yep. That's what hole 1 felt like. Hole 1 felt like safety on hole 1, and then it was just over.
It was just over.
It was done. Now, that being said, I do want to point something out really quick. Hailey King on the weekend gained tee to green, strokes to gain tee to green, 14.34. And circle 1 is 6.54. Her round 3 stats are 2.33 and negative 0.51 respectively. The fact that she still pulled those numbers with a round 3 that I think Hailey King would prefer never had happened ever, would much prefer to have not had that round ever happen. I think it's still something to say Hailey King is the next big thing.
We're going to get into this, folks. Is it a problem that this was the third course of the weekend? Imagine if they were going back to the round 2 course for the final round. You could imagine if it was a 4-round major, like the other majors, and they were playing 2 courses or 1 course, like the other majors, you might have had a more interesting setup because it's Hailey King coming off this insane second round. Then you're like, wow, can Paige keep up with Hailey King on this course? And instead, it's a new course. And, look, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Hailey King. You have to play the tournament that is in front of you. 3 courses, you got to deal with it. But I'm just saying, things are a little more interesting if players can, prepare for the 1 to 2 courses that have become standard on tour, even at the World Championships, and not have to play 3 different ones and prepare over the course of just a couple of days for 3 different ones. I'm just saying. Shout out to Hailey King, 1038 rated second round, shot a 45. And bested Paige Pierce by 2 strokes in that round. And Paige Pierce shot a 10-16 rated 47. But the difference in this tournament was that Paige Pierce shot well above her rating, well over 1,000 for each of her 3 rounds. It's not just the putting, right? Paige Pierce was locked in 10-14, 10-16, 10-32. She ramped up over the course of the week and did a lot of silencing of people who have been saying that, she's not focused enough. There was a lot of criticism of Pierce, which we're going to get into, about her comments about the U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship before the tournament started. So she comes out and just obliterates everybody. This is the greatest FPO player we've ever seen, doing it again, winning another major title, and it's, it almost feels just like there's this sense of inevitability. It's amazing what Paige Pierce is doing right now.
And we have to tip our cap to Juliana, who's the only one last week to pick that inevitability. Definitely the right pick. And, and I'm going to be honest, like, after there was all the online criticism, and maybe it's time that we stop mentioning it and just let's talking about it. But I wanted Paige to win going into the tournament. I knew it meant that my pick was wrong, but like I wanted Paige just to take that and show that, like, I mean, those concerns and those criticisms are valid and they deserve to be heard. And I think that this statement on the weekend, they should be regardless of how Paige played. If Paige came out and played terribly, they still deserve to be heard. But the fact that she came out and then just put the exclamation point on it at the end, I was thrilled to see.
So let's talk about this. So Paige Pierce on Instagram in her stories comes out on, I think, Tuesday of before the tournament, early in the week, and criticizes the fact that the players have to practice 3 courses for a major, that it's only 3 rounds, that the courses are still being heavily played by local players, and so there's not a lot of preparation time available for the pro athletes. And, literally added the PDGA in the story, at PDGA, and said, like, fix this. And, mirrored these comments across the week in press conferences and interviews. And there were a lot of other players who also spoke up. Notably, Kona Panis did the same thing on her Instagram, added the PDGA, complained about the format of the tournament, complained about the quality of the courses, which was, something we can talk a little bit about. Missy Gannon had some things to say as well. I mean, I people focused a lot on Paige Pierce's comments this week, but like, this was not a sentiment that was held only by Paige Pierce. Like Missy Gannon in her stories said, I sent in a formal statement to the PDGA tour manager regarding the lack of professionalism we've seen over the years at U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championships. This is my 3rd U.S. Women's, and every year it has felt like an afterthought. This is not a knock on the local tournament staff. We appreciate your willingness to run a PDGA major because it is hard work. This is a call to action to the PDGA to step it up. There is absolutely no reason a Disc Golf Pro Tour event should feel more prestigious than a major, period. Our sport is growing, and the standards are higher than ever. Once the PDGA recognizes that, then maybe we will see this event become more distinguished and taken more seriously. I encourage anyone that feels remotely the same about the shortcomings of past and present U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championships to please submit their concerns to the PDGA. There were a lot of people online, Josh, that specifically towards Pierce, particularly, as the most, the biggest spokesperson in FPO, I think, biggest star, and were critical for a variety of reasons, saying that, well, you went to Hawaii, you could have been practicing the U.S. women's courses. Just talking about how that the tournament shouldn't just stop, that they shouldn't just shut down the courses for pro players. On and on and on and on. People were going about Paige making excuses, blah, 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 blah. And absolutely nobody was addressing the actual complaint that Paige Pierce was making, which is not about Here's the thing. It's not about 3 courses in practice time. It's about the decision to have a major where these things are not really considered the way that they should be. And the fact that people are coming out and criticizing Paige Pierce for going to Hawaii in literally a vacation, which, by the way, it is acceptable for anybody to take a vacation, including professional disc golfers. And, you know, she's taking care of some personal business there. That it's not like she's going to go to Sacramento in the middle of the tour to go practice the U.S. women's courses and then drive back to wherever the tour is going next. Get real. Get real. Look, this, we even broached this briefly on the show last week. This tournament has never been treated with the same respect and focus as the other majors, period. It has been this way for years. There's one card of post-produced coverage. How do the NTs get more coverage than the fucking U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship? This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It really is unacceptable. And I don't want to hear people talk about, well, you know, people don't watch the women play as much, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. This is a PDGA major. It's not like the PDGA makes all of its decisions based on how much revenue that the content creators are going to make on YouTube. They're paying people to cover this stuff. So you cannot have the situation where this major people just don't care about it. Whether the fans decide to show up and watch or they don't show up and watch it. By the way, there were plenty of people out there at the course spectating, and it's the U.S. Women's Championship. It should be treated the same way from the PDGA perspective as the U.S. Disc Golf Championship, which is the men's title. That tournament, of course, run by Innova, now by U.S. Disc Golf, a sort of arm of Innova. And no one would question the prestige, the focus, 4 rounds, 1 course, epic amounts of live coverage. Like, they have always been on the forefront of making this the most prestigious event in the, in the game outside of Worlds, and it maybe depends on who you ask. And yet U.S. Women's is just like, it's like a celebration of women's disc golf. And it's like, no, we're past that. It is no longer just like a sideshow. This is a professional tour, and this is not even Disc Golf Pro Tour. This is the PDGA's job to promote this event in the same way that they focus on their other important majors. And I am so sick of hearing people online coming up with all kinds of reasons why this tournament, which has had these problems for years, is acceptable. Oh, practice more. Like, it's so annoying to hear people come up with all these reasons why the women's game shouldn't just get fair, equal footing for a major championship. Like, I don't care if you're not a fan. If you're listening right now and you're like, I don't really watch FPO, fine. That there's still professional players that deserve to get the same focus from the governing body as the men's players. That's a fact. It doesn't mean that you have to have all the bells and whistles and, do 6 cards of coverage or whatever. But, like, come on. How are we in a world where we don't get chase card coverage? Like, if the producers don't want to come out and do it because they don't feel like they're going to make enough money getting the YouTube revenue, then pay them to do it the way you do at other tournaments. Go ahead, Josh.
I think that the other part that's unacceptable about the whole revenue profit, there's 2 things about it that really, really annoy me about the idea of, well, women's disc golf just doesn't make as much money, so it's not as valuable. First off, the Disc Golf Pro Tour is a for-profit organization, like they're a business that runs, and they still manage to treat the FPO better than the PDGA, who is the inclusive, organization designed to build respect and build the sport of disc golf for everybody. That's not like the revenue is not a problem for disc golf or for the PDGA. That's not their consideration. There should be, how do we grow the sport for both MPO and FPO. The second thing, though, this is a tweet from Andrew Fish that I really liked and I thought was valuable. The disc golf media and organizers' current system of justifying more men, more coverage of men, without acknowledging that perpetuating systematic advantages yields more men, more coverage of men, is a great way to emulate the dumbest thing about mainstream sports. I just, you would think that after the March Madness debacle,
yes, literally,
that
about this,
the PDGA would go, maybe we shouldn't do that. Like maybe we should give the FPO everything they want out of their tournament and give them the major that they deserve. And I think the PDGA maybe the PDGA wasn't watching it, like, because the men's March Madness bracket is where it's all at. It's unacceptable. It truly, I think that's the only word I can come up with, is it's unacceptable. And I think that the Throw Pink Championship that's coming up, that's going to be held at Winthrop, is about to blow this out of the water. And it's going to be an embarrassment for the PDGA when it already is, but it's going to be even more of an embarrassment for the PDGA when it happens.
So let's dig a little deeper here and talk about some of the things that are a clear and present issue for the PDGA. It's not as though the PDGA is attempting to be malicious here, or that the goal of this event is not to have it be a great tournament. The problem is the PDGA is a very slow-moving organization in a very fast-moving sport. We've seen an insane amount of growth over the last 12 months. The PDGA has more money on hand than ever. Like, I think they have $3 to $4 million just in the bank, because their membership has grown so much. This is an incredibly fortunate time for the PDGA. However, they are not adapting quickly enough to the new universe. And some of this stuff is also a holdout from COVID. Like this tournament was bid out in 2018, I think, to be held in 2020. And then, of course, it got pushed because of COVID to 2021. And I honestly, like, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the courses or the Sacramento team. Like, I'm sure this was really exciting for the Sacramento community. I love that. Like, one of the cool things about US Women's is that it moves around and allows, women from the local area to participate in this tournament. The point is that this tournament once was a different thing, right? The FPO scene was much less developed. There was a general goal of trying to create more opportunities for like a women's only tournament, an important women's only tournament, a major. And, having all of the AM divisions playing right there alongside the open divisions. And, I respect that like goal. And I think even today, there are players who value that experience and part of it more than they would value doing the, pro only invite type event that we're going to see at Winthrop, and that we saw, last year's women's national championship was not invite only, but this Throw Pink one coming up is invite only. And I think, some of the top players clearly are going to prefer that environment and that level of kind of professionalism over the more kind of big tent, get everybody here, let's have this celebration of women's disc golf. And so fundamentally, you have this tournament that is a little bit anachronistic in that it's, trying to be this kind of like big catch-all, everybody come play together. And we've really seen kind of a separation of the professional players in a lot of other parts of the sport from the AM environment. And it's a solvable problem. There are plenty of tournaments that have side by side AM and pro events, even very large scale tournaments like Ledgestone, for example. So you could do it, you can do it, but it's hard when you're maybe in a place that doesn't have quite enough courses to support all of these divisions being able to not only play the tournament, but practice. And, when you're hearing the complaints from multiple professional players that like there's not enough professionalism, that it doesn't feel as prestigious as a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, which, by the way, we've had multiple people on the show over the last 2 months basically say the same thing, not specifically about majors, but about NT events compared to Pro Tour events. And it's just like the Pro Tour is just much more nimble because of their nature than the PDGA. And so we're seeing things kind of like make all this progress on the Pro Tour side, and the PDGA is still doing things like they did them 5 years ago. And it's just like the sport is not where it was 5 years ago. So here's what I have to say about this. The PDGA has to recognize that they need to have staff people whose job is literally only to run professional majors. That's it. That's their only job. They got millions of dollars in the bank. They should be hiring like crazy right now. And I think we need to see the PGA clarify, like, what is the plan? I've talked to multiple people who are like, lately, like, what is the PDGA's focus right now? And it's hard, right? This is a challenging situation. As much as it's an exciting opportunity, it's challenging to suddenly have this huge influx of players. And right now, they've been simply focusing on being able to offer tournament play to all of the amateur members. We've had all these problems with people getting on wait lists, and like that's a real challenge that the PDGA has to fix. It's not like their only job is to focus on professional play. Arguably, they should minimize the amount of time they spend focusing on professional play because of the nature of their mission. But if they're going to continue running the majors, which I think is a great thing that they're able to do, they need to hire people whose job it is year-round to focus on execution of the majors. Even if you're working with local organizing committees like the folks who ran US Women's, you need to have staff whose job it is to handle this stuff and say, here are the codified things that we want to have at every major. Here's how we're going to make sure that it's professionally run. We need to have somebody who's selling sponsorship. We need to have, they need to treat the promotion of the majors the same way the Disc Golf Pro Tour focuses on the promotion of its tournaments. Simple as that. And I think, that doesn't mean they need to run the NTs. They could probably let that go and just focus their energy on the tournaments that matter the most. And so in a way, like I understand there's a tension between this like rapid expansion of the sport and like the history and the way that it's been done in the past. But players complain every year about US Women's. This needs to be the moment for change for what this tournament is going forward. And if I see more people affiliated with the PDGA out on social media taking shots at the players who are making complaints, talking, like leaving nasty comments about Paige Pierce in the comments on Facebook, I'm going to lose my mind. The PDGA, people affiliated with the PDGA need to acknowledge that they're maybe not beyond reproach. You know what? You're not perfect. It's okay. It's okay that you're not perfect. But identify when there are problems and work to fix them. And don't make a bunch of excuses about, you need to go through the proper channels of, command and take it to the board and blah, 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 blah. You know what? If Paige Pierce wants to go on Instagram and at the PDGA, well, she can do that. You know what? That's a way for her to get a lot of attention and have everybody in the sport talking about it, just like we are right now. And so, you know what? I'm sure there were some feelings hurt. I'm sure it feels frustrating when, of course, everybody at the PDGA and everybody who's a part of this tournament was working really hard to make it a great event. So it does sting when you hear criticism of something that you're working on. I can speak personally to that, having, worked on disc sports products for a long time and had plenty of criticism. But you know what? That is not a reason to go on Facebook and like take shot. Like, it's just such a terrible look. I want to see the PDGA take this and say, you know what? We have to make some significant changes to our structure and approach to some of these things, including U.S. women's, and move forward into the next phase of this sport's growth.
The last thing I have to say about this is, I guess two things. The first one is, I hope that this is a serious word of caution for the PDGA about the way that they can throw around the title of major, because I remember, think about like the what is it? I don't remember what they call those, the new championship, the Players Championship. I don't remember what they called the new major.
Champions Cup.
Thank you. Whatever they called that fourth major. I mean, when we interviewed Yuli, he's like, I'm going to go because it's a major. Like, I'll be there. Those women are there because it's a major. But if this didn't have a major title, if it was continually run this way, they wouldn't be there. And so I think it is an abuse of the title of major to continue to ignore and understaff these kind of tournaments, but just know that you're going to continue to get the top names because it is a major. That's first thing. Second thing, and again, relative to probably a lot of our listeners, I know that I haven't been in the sport as long. You know, I've been in almost 10 years, not as long as most people, and I get that. But what I'm going to say is the PDGA events and the history of the PDGA that we are so keen on preserving is a history of disc golf that was designed exclusively around MPO. Simple as that. There wasn't an FPO scene nearly as developed. And so, yeah, that history is great. Yeah, we like to talk about, you know, the champ and the old events and the way that they were run and the nostalgia of them. But it's noteworthy that that nostalgia doesn't involve FPO nearly as often as it should. And so if it means that we put that side of we close that book on that chapter and put that on the history books and put it aside and begin to actually care about women's sports and women's disc golf in the way that we should, then I say good riddance to history.
So let us know your thoughts. Upshot at oldworld.com. Hit us up in the Discord if you're a subscriber. There's a lot to say about this, and you know, we could probably spend a whole episode just focusing on this topic, but we're going to move on. I do, you know, just to come back around to the U.S. women's actual on-course performance, we have to give a huge shout out to Ella Hansen, aka One Throw Ella, who finished in third place. And I know I mentioned it before here on the show, but literally played her first round of disc golf ever in November 2019. Ultimate player, played at the University of Oregon, played for a top-level club team, essentially let's call it the equivalent of FPO and Ultimate Frisbee out of Oregon, and has now not only like made a splash, but like finished on the podium at a major. This is an amazing story to keep an eye on, because somebody asked me in the Discord, what's Ella's ceiling? And it's like very clearly major champion. Like Ella Hansen could become the next challenger for winning a major tournament. I mean, think about the progress. Like, people talk a lot about Brody Smith. In relative terms, Ella is massively outperforming Brody. You know, like Brody finishing on the podium at a major would be an incredible achievement, and people would be going nuts. Like, this is the same thing that's happening right now in FPO. And Ella Hansen, like, has easy power already. Like, is out driving much of the field already, and has only been playing a year and a half. I think it's just going to be amazing to watch. And she's like committed to playing for the long term. I would expect to see Ella Hansen be, you know, the next big thing.
She got picked up by Discmania, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's a great pickup to fill a glaring need that we talked about on the show a little while ago. So, yeah, that was a great pick. Just rounding out top 5 with 2 other storylines I saw. Missy Gannon continues to play great. 4th at a major. She's doing great. And then last, I would have liked Chase Card coverage to watch her kill it. But Anyway, and last one, Holly Finley. Holly Finley has, I saw on her Facebook story, cashed over $1,000 at 3 events in a row. It's like top 5. And so, I mean, Holly Finley also having a great season. So props to all of them. There were some great storylines, and I'm glad that we got to talk a little bit about them over the disaster that happened.
That's an interesting storyline that we should come back to. Payouts are moving up.
Mm-hmm.
Payouts are moving up, and it's not necessarily something that gets talked about, except when it's really notable, like somebody earns $20K for winning a tournament like US Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, or there's a really notable purse that's bigger than any before. I think fans generally don't focus on how much money players are earning week to week, and that's fair. Like, it doesn't really matter, like, to fans how much players are making, but obviously to players it matters a great deal. And we are seeing payouts getting higher. I mean, we're seeing tournaments start to put in more added cash. You've got Holly Finley talking about how she's earned over $1,000, and that's obviously finishing 5th at a major. You deserve to get a nice payout. So credit mostly goes to her game, but I think it's also notable from a player's perspective because, like, those payouts weren't necessarily there for 5th place a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not, I think it's fair that we come a little bit at the PDGA in this episode, but let's also acknowledge that, like, the sport is making a great deal of progress, and one of the things that comes with progress is, like, these kinds of growing pains that come up along the way. And to me, this is not so much about the U.S. Women's Championship as it is about the PDGA needing to identify that the way they've done things over the last even like 3 years has to go out the door, and they need to say, okay, we're in this new paradigm. We have way more money. We need to figure out how we're going to allocate this capital. Having the money sitting in the bank account is not serving members. It's not serving the sport. Keep your emergency cash on the sideline. Get whatever it is that you need to keep in the bank in case there's, COVID round 2, or some other natural disaster, and then spend that money, because there's a lot of things that the PDGA needs to improve upon. And you want to do more website stuff? Hire another 2 developers. Like, you have all this money. This is amazing. Take advantage of this moment and recognize that, like, it's time to come up with a new plan. Like, we need a new strategy. And so, yeah, I don't want to harp on this too much, but exciting weekend. Congratulations again to Paige Pierce, who we're going to talk to in just a moment. So, you know what? Let's go to it right now. We're going to talk with Paige Pierce about her win at the U.S. Women's Championship, and obviously, we're going to talk about some of this fallout from her comments about the tournament. Stay with us. It's the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. It's that time again. Set your alarms. June 1st, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. That is next Tuesday. Well, they've got the custom order process reopening. You're going to be able to get in there, order yourself a custom Octothorpe, a custom Carlton, the bag just the way you like it, the fabrics, the zippers, everything about the bag customizable. I mean, go check out Pound Disc Golf on Facebook and Instagram, and just check out some of these bags they're turning out. Beautiful. I mean, it's like artwork. You can put it on your wall. Check it all out, pounddiscgolf.com. Joining us now on the Upshot is the winner of the 2021 U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship, now 16-time major winner, 4-time U.S. champ, Paige Pierce. Paige, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an awesome week.
I'm sure it has. You've now had a few days to let it all kind of sink in. And I know the tour, it's like, boom, practice the next course, play the next tournament, getting ready for Worlds. This weekend, obviously getting ready for Masters Cup. Do you get to bask in the win a little bit? To just enjoy winning, a record 4th U.S. championship?
I mean, as far as time goes, not really. The very next day was out practicing De La, so getting ready for the next event. But that night we went out top golfing and went out for dinner and stuff. So had some fun with some friends, and went right to work again the next day. So it's something where I'll kind of bask in it, like in certain moments throughout the next, year, pretty much, or who knows how long it'll last. It was a really memorable event for me, being 100% inside the circle. So, I have visions of certain putts that I made that I was just like, what, another one, and so, yeah, it's kind of like, I definitely feel like I'm basking in it, but it's like, it comes and goes when moments are like calm,
Yeah. What would you say is more memorable almost? Because you say the things you bask in are like the kind of like some of those putts that you made. Would you say that it's kind of what I would say is a fairly historic performance in sense of, 100% inside the circle? That's just astonishing. Or is it the title itself? So, was it the weekend, the tournament, and the way you played? Or is it that the title of the 16th major and 4th women's championship?
It's a little bit of both. I would say at most tournaments, it's the shots that I was able to accomplish. But at major championships, it's a little bit of both, because majors are revered so highly as far as the sponsors are concerned. So they really, really affect your sponsorship agreements and your potential career in the sport. So I think, a big part of it is also that it was a major, but in my own mind, I'm going to remember the shots more so than it being a major. But for my sponsors, that is what they want to see.
Sure.
So we're going to come back to U.S. Women's as a major in a sec, but I want to ask you, when in the final round did you relax and say, I've got this?
I believe it was on hole 5. I took 4, so it was hole 6. I'm sorry. I took 4 birdies in a row, and then I took a bogey, and then my 6th hole, I got another birdie. And on that hole, Haley King had taken a double bogey. So I got 3 strokes there, and I got 2 strokes on the first hole and a stroke on the second hole. So I think I was up by 5, 6, 7, 8 strokes at that point after 6 holes. So, that's when I could kind of feel like a little bit of a breath that I could take. I mean, I was very tense. My hands were sweaty. My heart rate was up. I was very nervous. And after those first 2 holes, I felt a little bit of relief. But it wasn't until she carded that double bogey on a hole that I birdied that I really felt like, okay, now I'm in the driver's seat and we just got to get through these next, 11 holes.
Do you typically get those kinds of nerves in the final round at a tournament every week if it's a close battle?
Yeah, if it's a close battle, absolutely. No matter what level of event it is. I think that is something that is kind of like, I would guess that even Paul Macbeth gets Ricky, even when he's, doing his raptor leg and making 80 footers. I think that, we all get that feeling when it's like really the tension's high, and every single stroke matters. Every inch of your wrist and every little mile per hour of speed coming into the ground. It's a game of inches for sure. So I think that it would be crazy if someone said that they didn't feel tense in those moments.
I actually want to ask you about this. Sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Your questions here. I remember many years ago now, you were still with Prodigy, and it was Worlds in Emporia, I think. And I had been walking the cards all week. And I remember that you made a mistake somewhere in the back 9, went out of bounds on a hole that had OB right. I forgive me, I'm not remembering the hole off the top of my head.
Yeah.
You remember it.
Yep.
You're in a battle, right, to win that championship. And I remember watching you, like, I think you threw out of bounds, and I remember watching you close your eyes and you like took some big deep breaths, and like I was obviously a very disappointing moment for you, I'm sure. But I'm just curious, like, are there moments like that you look back on and you learn from as a way of helping you find the mental strength necessary to achieve to really execute in those big spots later in your career?
Yeah, I think that honestly, that is a perfect example, because I truly, truly do actually think back to that hole and that moment. And I definitely learned some things from that moment. It's in that particular instance, it's don't be so aggressive, like who cares about a birdie right now? Let's just land safe. Let's just see what happens in the next few holes. Because if you do go B, you're faced with throwing the same shot again. And if you go B again, Val's in the clear, there's no catching her. There's only a few holes left. And so I think that there's lessons to be learned everywhere on every shot you throw. And it's just kind of takes the more studious player to pick up on that and to like analyze their own game and their own shots. Because I think a lot of players, especially when you're coming up in the ranks, you're trying to throw the shot and then you're trying to throw the next shot. And maybe when the round's over, you talk about what could have been. But I hear a lot of times players saying things like, oh, I had a spit out, or, oh, I had a whatever. And I'm more of the like critical thinker of like, I could have hit it a little bit flatter. I could have hit it a little bit more in the center. So, yeah, I think there's lots of lessons to be learned from every single shot and moments like that, pivotal moments.
So I'm curious. I think that there, when it comes to these kind of moments, there are really like two people, in my experience, in the way that they channel nerves. You have the one who I think really tries to calm themselves down. That nerves are, in a sense, an impediment to their ability to perform, and that they have to learn to find ways, whether that's deep breaths, whether that's distracting themselves. It's settling yourself down as much as possible. I think I remember seeing a quote somewhere about Climo saying he tries not to think about golf too much between shots, because for him, just like that saved mental energy for him. I think then the other type of people, though, are ones who take those nerves and find that they perform better with an edge almost. Once they have that pressure, that's what allows them to begin to focus on every degree of angle of your wrist, of the disc, of where it needs to be. Would you say that you could relate to one of those two categories?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I've always been good under pressure. I think that, I don't know if it's always been this way, or if it was somewhere along the way that was just a while ago that I can't really recall exactly. But I feel like when I do have those feelings of my heart racing and my hands are sweaty, it makes me feel like, wow, you must really want this. You must really, really want this. Otherwise, why is your body freaking out like this? And taking it as a statement to myself of like, here you are, like, this is your opportunity. And now let's go seize it. And Nate Perkins, a good friend of mine, he caddied for me last week at the major. And afterwards, he said to me like that, obviously my putting set me apart, but he said like the thing that he was the most impressed by, that he thinks set me apart, was my focus on every single shot. And I touched on this, that the courses were relatively simple. And he said that I'm proud of you for not taking advantage, or, that wasn't the phrase he said, like, that you still took your time on those holes and you still gave them credit. And when it came time in the moment on the tee pad, you stood there and gave each shot as much focus as the last. And you never took a shot for granted, even if it was 100-foot upshot, or if it was, a 200-foot drive or what. And so, now replaying the event and thinking back to it and thinking about like all those moments where it was such a simple shot. And if I was just at the course with my dad 10 years ago, I would have just got right up and thrown it. But since it was a major, I think that is what that extra bit of like time and focus was on. And I think that answers like one of your previous questions as well, Charlie, that like I'm more focused and I do not take any shots for granted.
Okay. How did it's, you know, obviously we're going to talk about it in the media. You know, you take a break, you go to Hawaii, you skip an event, and the season had been going well for you, but not, you know, by the standards by which you are measured, which is basically winning everything. It wasn't your best start, and you've come back and since won 2 straight events. Did the time off help? Is that a real thing that gave you an edge to come back and be ready to perform at a high level again? Or is this just randomness?
No, I definitely think so. And it's funny, like it's so funny for starters that, you know, people, there's just, you know, trolls, what they're called on the internet, like trolls, or just people that have opinions that are just hurtful kind of sometimes. And saying like, oh, you shouldn't be vacationing in Hawaii. And it's like, for starters, yes, I am in Hawaii, but that doesn't mean I'm not practicing every single day. I actually putted more than I ever have before in Hawaii. And every single day I kind of made it my mission, like, okay, you don't get to go to this waterfall until you throw 300 putts, or you don't get to do whatever it is. And so it's kind of just like a place where I didn't go to a course and 100 people are like, Paige Pierce, sign my disc, take a photo. It was like, hey, you can take a breath again. You're not Paige Pierce. You're this girl who likes playing disc golf and likes to adventure. And yeah, I think that, you know, to go back to your question, it definitely helps because it's such a grind. You know, I've been doing it for 12 years, but even the people that have only been doing it for 1 or 2 years, they are playing events every single weekend, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get that first win, trying to make a better contract, trying to create this storyline for the media to, you know, gain them more fans or whatever it may be. And it just gets exhausting, not only on your body, but also like on your mind. And you can't do the same thing every day, and you can't have all these voices, and you can't have all this like physical stuff going on as well. I think that your body and your mind need breaks. And so I've kind of learned that over the years that yes, your sponsors want you to play disc golf, but they also want you to play to your best. So if you need to take a break and come back better. And, you know, I've chatted with all my sponsors ahead of time and made sure that they knew that I'm going to be skipping certain events. You know, earlier in the year, I even called Bob and said, hey, these are the 3 big ones I'm thinking about skipping. Do you have any huge, no, don't do that? And they were like, yeah, what's your reasoning? Okay, sounds good. Good luck this year. So it's, yeah, I think that it's something that I've found personally that is very, very helpful. And I think I would recommend it to a lot of other players as well.
So something that I know is in the I guess of speculation during what we kind of referred to as the slower start for the season relative to the enormous expectations that are placed upon you. One of the speculation, including us, was that you have a lot on your plate, even relative to other disc golfers. You have your sponsorship, obviously, but then, I mean, it seems like you've been doing your YouTube channel. You have your sponsorship with like the Thunderbird products, for example. You're working on your documentary, and the countless other obligations that I'm sure that you have. Do you feel that those obligations get in the way of your performance at times? And how do you manage all those obligations that you have in order to ensure that you can meet those expectations both off the course as well as on the course?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a testament to like how active I am just all the time. There's not like a moment that goes by where I'm not doing something that is progressing me. Unless I'm playing Catan, which I see behind your head. That
choice.
is literally my only like moments of my day where I'm not like on and in like Paige Pierce mode. And, you know, I kind of joke that my job is like only 40% of it is like getting birdies and shooting course records or whatever, playing disc golf. Like the other 60% is negotiating with sponsors, trying to get new sponsors, trying to get on Sports Illustrated and ESPN, trying to, you know, promote my current sponsors, trying to start a disc golf documentary. And, you know, it's been a crazy year, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, if I'm going to play bad at 4 tournaments to set new standards for our sport, then I'm definitely okay with that. But yeah, it totally gets hard to juggle sometimes. And it really, takes a whole new level of like scheduling and trying to prioritize, okay, what is the most important? Is it Waco or is it this Sports Illustrated interview or, you know, certain things like that. And it comes down to just how I feel in the moment, which one is more important in the long term. And it got really tough as of last year. Like the latter part of last year into this year is when it's gotten the toughest. Up until 2 months ago, everything that you've ever seen from Paige Pierce, like, you know, down to filming, editing my YouTube videos to practicing to everything, like you're saying, has all been me. So I've tried to now hire a team of people to work with me and to handle like social media stuff, to create graphics for me, to do video stuff for me. So I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore. And then, yeah, I'm trying to find like an agent so that I can do none of the sponsorship stuff anymore either. So at least my plate is like a third less full than it has been. So I'm very thankful for my team in that. But now, like I said, I've taken on this documentary and, it is my idea. It's like my brainchild. And, so I'm the one that's like calling the shot. I do have 2 awesome producers, but, I'm still like, I think we should do this. I think we should do this. So that one for me right now is taking a huge, seat like at the top of my priorities. Just because I think that this could be a really, really, really big thing for disc golf. So it's a balance. It's a balance trying to juggle all these things.
Well, you just won a major by 13 strokes. I'd hate to see what happens when disc golf becomes the priority again.
Well, no, I mean, it's definitely the priority when I'm in those moments. And I think I do a really good job at turning my brain off when I'm on the course. And taking that extra bit of time and like focusing on the disc. And I stopped, bringing my phone with me to practice rounds. That was another huge thing. You know, I have most of my notifications off, but if an email goes off, I feel like, oh, gotta respond to this immediately. Or if Charlie texts and says, hey, we need an interview, like these things feel very important, you know? And,
it is. I need an immediate answer.
No,
I'm going to start calling out if you don't answer within 2 minutes.
But yeah, so anyway, I realized, you know, it's something that I need. If I am saying this is practice time, don't bring any distractions with me. Stop playing with people that, you know, aren't there to practice. If they're just trying to have a good time, I'm not interested in practicing with anymore. So it's kind of like living and learning, you know?
All right. So we have to address the big topic of conversation that you started this past week, prior to the U.S. Women's Championship, when you added the PDGA on Instagram, and you said that playing 3 courses, only 3 rounds at a major is unacceptable. There's a lot of directions we could go here. I guess what I want to ask you first is, now that you've played the event, that you've won the tournament, does anything change about the way that you felt before the event in terms of the level of professionalism, and like what a major should be?
I would love to, I will answer your question because you asked it, but I want to make it clear that it wasn't about this particular 2021 U.S. Women's. It's all of the U.S. Women's that I can remember in the last 8 years. We've played 3 courses. And this one is just obviously the most current. So it's on the talking points, but yeah, I think it's totally unacceptable. And no, my opinions have not changed at all after playing the event. And that was a huge motivation for me to come out there and show people it's not about me. This is not a Paige Pierce problem. This is the sport. This is women's disc golf. When we are on courses that only have one, we played 4 par 4s total the entire event. I would say this is actually not a stat. This is like an approximation in my mind. I would say like the average hole length was 300 feet, maybe like between 280 and 320. And, when you have the level of skill that we have now in 2021, that does not represent what we're capable of. And it kind of limits what we're able to show the world. And so have you ever heard like when you play with people on your card that are like 700 rated, that you play down to their level? Have you ever heard people talk about that? It's the same thing with the courses. When we play on easier courses, it feels like, oh, this isn't serious. Like this, it's just right there. Like, and you don't give it much credit, and it's harder to score on, and when we have the top women in the world competing for a major title, they should absolutely be on a premier level course, and the course should be closed to locals and spectators, anybody. We're prepping for a major championship, and everyone's trying to grow the sport and make it legitimate. We don't want this image of stoners and people walking around with their shirts off, drinking beers. But this is what we're doing with the major championships. So it's very aggravating, and it has been so for years and years and years. I know a few of us put in formal feedback after the Michigan U.S. Women's, because again, same thing. There was 3 courses. One of them we teed off on plywood that was crooked. And it just doesn't get taken seriously, and it's time for a change for sure. And so I think a lot of us are fired up and ready to take whatever stand we need to do to make this thing, more important in the PDGA's eyes.
I have a couple questions. I think the most appropriate one here would be compare the U.S. Women's Championship and the treatment of it, and how would you compare that to what was I don't remember what it was called exactly, but the Women's Nationals that ran concurrently with Winthrop, or at Winthrop, with the USDGC. What was that like, the difference in feeling? Do you feel like, and the upcoming Throw Pink Championship, what are things that feel different and better about that championship? Does it? Can kind of contrast and compare those 2 events for us?
Yeah. The Women's National Championship was the name of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. For starters, it's on a private venue. So there was no random people coming in. It was a very professional week as far as practice goes. The course was set up right away when we got there, a week ahead of time. So that contrasts in this event, because there was OB, and first of all, there was 3 courses. And so, for example, I practiced Shady Oaks the first day I got there, and then the other ones. And then I actually decided, hey, I think I want to go back to Shady Oaks, play another round there. And I'm glad I did so, because then OB was set up on Thursday. That wasn't there on Tuesday. Just having the course set up on time, with all the caddy book, the OB made, the circles painted, the banners already up, the course is closed, And then going into the event now, it feels more prestigious because there's multiple media crews, not just one. The U.S. Women's this year had one media crew. Central Coast was there, and thank you, Central Coast, for being there. But I'm not sure why there was only one media crew, especially because I know GK Pro wanted to be there. But yeah, so just having more media presence, we had Juliana and Hannah Macbeth and the whole media crew there doing commentary on site. And then, when you finished your round, you went into this like crazy room lit up with all these lights, and it just felt like, wow, you just finished a very important round. And spotters on every hole. The list goes on and on. It was a really well ran event. And I think that is because it was concurrent with the men's major at the same time, same place. So we were already using their setup, if you will. I don't know if that would have happened if the men's major wasn't also happening at the same time. And I guess we never will know that, but I know that every major that we've had that has strictly been a women's major has been, in my opinion, swept under the rug and just, okay, here's a major, we'll slap an M on it, but it's going to be ran like a B tier.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've had the same feeling for years. I can't say that I've been to a U.S. Women's Championship, but the vibe of the event, the way that it feels like it's treated from kind of the outside, feels like that. It's not good. It's really not good. I guess my question is, like, have you seen the feedback given to the PDGA in the past? You said that a few people submitted things after the Michigan, and I know some people have submitted formal feedback this week as well. Have you seen that feedback sort of like taken into account and acted upon for future events?
As of now, no, I haven't, because like I said, we have in the past, and still this is what's happening. I do want to take a moment and say, like, some incredible positives from this week was the spectators were awesome. We had like over 100 people in the gallery watching. And that was just really cool to see. And there was people out there. It's very hot in Stockton, and they had like cold drinks on every hole, handing us cold drinks and stuff. And, the payout was incredible. They obviously raised a lot of funds to make sure that we were at least compensated as if it was a major. But yeah, I think back to your question, it doesn't seem to me as though much has changed, and it's very frustrating. And, I think that was kind of where my line of thought went, and it's like, okay, let's spread the word to the people then. And it wasn't me trying to talk crap or talk behind the PDGA's back. I literally tagged them. I want them to see this. And I hope that more people do the same if they feel, about anything. If you feel passionate about anything, share about it, because it's not going to get changed if you don't. So, that was kind of my intention, is to spread the word to the people, and hopefully the people that do feel similar can also put in formal feedback, and we can actually make a change, because I think that the women that are getting into the sport and the young girls that are starting to play competitively, they deserve better in the future. And this just can't keep happening.
I want to follow up and ask, the U.S. Women's Championship, like, part of the design of the tournament, it seems to be that it's meant to be this sort of celebration of women's disc golf, and that you have not only the FPO players there, but all of these amateur divisions, and everybody's all there, big tent, the whole deal. Is it still appropriate in 2021 and the way the sport has grown for that to be the approach? Like, can this tournament both be what it is, or like what it has been historically, and be what you're talking about in terms of the, sort of the expectations around courses and practice time, etc.
Yeah, I think, there's certain venues that I can think of off the top of my head that would be great for US Women's. One more thing about this year's US Women's that was kind of an oversight, I think, is that the courses were pretty far away and the schedules were conflicting. So I had quite a few parents come up to me saying, oh, my junior is, my daughter, is she still playing over at the other course? She couldn't be here. Can you just send it, take this little video and say, hi, Grace, and, good luck or, good playing this weekend. Keep it up, something like that. And that was not just one time. That was like 5 or 6 times this weekend. So that comes to mind. And I think, well, that's exactly what you're saying, Charlie, is like, that is the point of it, is the celebration of like women's disc golf and coming together. But at this particular event, we weren't able to come together because all the courses were so spread out. So I think, yes, continue to have US Women's as a gathering of women coming together in the professional competitive side of the sport, but have that happen at a venue where all the courses are together. I think of like Lemon Lake, where we had Worlds. They have like 5 courses in the same parking lot. I think of where we just had Texas States this year, Lindsay Park in Tyler, Texas. There's 4 great courses right there in the same park. Even something like Smuggler's Notch, you have the wide open Fox Run and the technical Brewster Ridge, same parking lot. I think if we want to celebrate women, we want to showcase good golf, we want to grow the legitimacy of this event, that is a move that we should make going forward, having everyone in one location, but having the pros play the premium course and having the amateurs play on the slightly shorter, less challenging courses.
And so I guess that gives me to a follow-up. Like, do you want to see U.S. Women's remain separate from USDGC? Because, USDGC is now going to be running this invite-only Throw Pink Championship that may feel like a major, even if it doesn't have the M next to its name. Do you still want to see U.S. Women's be its own thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think the more all women's events, the better. I think that this is a good way to, there's lots of women that play disc golf and girls that play disc golf, but they don't really compete in disc golf because they don't want to be the only girl there. And so events like this where they see, wow, there are 65 pro women there. This is amazing. That is so inviting and welcoming to girls of all skill levels, of all divisions. And, it kind of shows them that, wow, there are lots of women out there competing. Let me go tell my friends about it and bring them to this event next year. And, I think that I would love to see it continue to be a major, but I think we need to really take some steps. And I think that it is part of their requirement that the PDGA representatives come scope out the location before the event and maybe make them make changes, or like, hey, that Mando needs to be in play because we can't have them throwing over the sidewalk, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that is part of what the PDGA does. But I'm not sure if the PDGA does that before they accept the major bid. If that is not something that happens, I think that needs to be implemented immediately. I think that before they say yes to the next year's bid, they need to at least see the courses. They need to check the internet service. They need to see all kinds of things before they just say, yeah, you can hold a major. Why not? So maybe that already happens, but if it does, it kind of worries me even more that they saw these courses and thought that it was acceptable venue for us to be competing at for a professional title.
So I think it's undeniable that, that while I think there were a lot of FPO players on their social media who raised concerns about this, that your name carries a particular weight to it. So when you voiced your concerns and dissatisfaction over this course and this event, and again, not of course not as you personally, but just the event as a whole, I think your name does carry weight with it. Do you consider yourself as a representative of women's disc golf writ general? I mean, of the FPO world, what do you see as your responsibility, if any, to help promote the sport for others? Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely do. I think that I know my place in the sport, and I know that my word is powerful, and I don't want to take advantage of that. And there are some locals that feel very attached to the courses that we played that are taking this very personally. And that's because they're attached to the courses and they identify themselves as learning on the course, and the course represents them. And that's okay. I know I'm going to ruffle feathers when I make any statement. I could literally say I like Catan and someone really hates it. And now I have an enemy for life, but that's never going to stop me from saying what I believe in. And especially when it's something that really does impact the legitimacy of women's disc golf, I'm never going to be scared to speak my mind. And I think that there's a lot more that needs to be said. There's other ways that it can be said. And, like going on Instagram really briefly, and that's maybe that's all of what some people saw for the first few days anyway. They're like, what the hell? Like, Paige is complaining and she, whatever. So that's why I want to do things like this, where I can actually explain my intentions and why I'm fighting for this, because it is very important. And I think that the people that are mad at me, it's only because they feel an attachment to the courses.
I've seen some comments from people who are not local who said things like you should be practicing instead of going to Hawaii.
Yeah, Robert Leonard said that, a PDGA representative. I saw that as well. And
I'm just curious, what, how do you react to that? I saw you had an Instagram post earlier this week kind of talking about some of the comments and the criticism that kind of came your way following this. And, representatives of the PDGA maybe suggested that you should have gone about this in a different way, that you shouldn't have, made a big issue about it. So, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think that they are also attached to the PDGA. We all have attachment issues, and they are attached to the PDGA. Robert Leonard is literally on the PDGA, and he's going about it typing on Facebook, calling me names and saying these personal things about me, where literally all I'm trying to do is say, this is a major that has your stamp of approval on it, and this is what you guys are giving us. It's not about me going to Hawaii. I won every tournament I've played since I got back. I literally was practicing the whole time I was there. It has nothing to do with that, but he wants to take the blame off of him as a part of the PDGA and put it on me and make me the bad guy. It's not about me not having enough time to practice. It's so much more than that. And it really frustrates me. It boils my blood more than anything, especially when it's a member of the governing body of the sport. I've been to the meetings, to the boards, the PDGA summits, and I think we need a players union immediately. And I think we have a lot of work to do internally in the PDGA. And that is why I skipped the DDO, because I am trying to play less national tours and slightly boycott them. I was planning on not playing Delaware as well. So the Disc Golf Pro Tour is the best thing that's happened to our sport. And I hope that they become a governing body in the next few years, and that we don't even need to be PDGA certified or whatever. I hope to not pay the PDGA any more of my membership dollars.
Do you think the PDGA serves an important role in the sport?
I think they serve a very important role in the amateur side of the sport. I think that, other people can do it. Just like in ball golf, they have the USGA And then they have the PGA, and the USGA makes the rules. I don't think that the PDGA should be doing both. You know, they are accepting $75 a year from all of the PDGA members, and they're not promoting the professional level events. They are just trying to get more people to play in the amateur side of the event. And the last PDGA summit I went to, they had just hired a new media. I can't remember exactly her title, but it was like a marketing media director of some sort. And I waited my turn and asked her the question of, you know, I'm guessing you cannot tell me dollar wise what your budget is, but can I ask you, what are you using the marketing budget on? Because from my eyes, I have not seen any marketing outside of the sport. I see the PDGA commercial on Jomez Pro or Central Coast, but if I'm running the marketing in the PDGA, I'm putting it on a billboard. Every time we go into Peoria, Illinois, 2 weeks prior to the event, rent out the billboard, says, this is the course they're going to be at, professional disc golfers. Next event, we're going to Maple Hill. Put a giant billboard up in Boston. Professional disc golf event. And yes, that's a lot of money, but you're renting a billboard for 1 month or, 1 week or 2 weeks. Put a commercial on the local disc, on the local channels. I don't know, but I've never seen any marketing go into the professional side of the sport. And that is what's growing the game. That is why amateurs are playing and joining the game, because they're seeing players like Ella Hansen, who comes into the game. She's been playing 9 months and she almost wins a major. She gets third place. She podiums. And that is what drives amateurs to join the PDGA and start playing tournaments. And so it's this whole cycle that the PDGA seemingly doesn't care about the professional side of the game at all. And if they do, then I would love to see them walk the walk and prove it.
What would you say that, so you say one course of action is players union, but what about for like your average member, right? Like what do you want to see out of recreational amateur disc golfers that can affect that kind of change that you're asking for?
Oh man.
Is there any? I mean, because that's...
I don't know about that. I would say like, let me text you later when I think about it. But, I don't know. I would say I truly don't know that answer, and I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I don't know what we can do other than use our voices to say, hey, and challenge it. And I know that's what I'm doing, and that's okay. I'm challenging the PDGA. If you do want to see our sport grow, let's do it. Let's work with us. Like, we want to grow as well. We're trying to do this, but when we're playing events, like, we need to work together to take them to the next level. And it's hard enough to even find out where the summit's going to be. They say it's a public summit, but then they don't post about it anywhere. So we literally, one of us found out and texted every other pro player that wanted to attend the event. So, yeah, stuff like that. And it should be live. If it's a public thing, it should be live, and they should be broadcasting this to every PDGA member that pays them money, should be involved, and at least hear what they're voting on and what rules they're passing and what, all these things that happen in the public summit. So yeah, I don't know what the amateur should do or say right now, but I'll think about it. Thanks for giving me a question I'm going to think about.
All right. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about your documentary
and I know you've got a Kickstarter up now. So how is the Kickstarter going, and what's the hope for this documentary that you're planning to pursue?
I do want to correct you because we're using Indiegogo because it was better.
I am sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I use Kickstarter like I use Kleenex.
Yeah, we Googled all of them. What's the best avenue? GoFundMe, Kickstarter, and we found out Indiegogo.
I think you save more money on Indiegogo, right?
I think you do as well on that. Yep, I think you do. But
yeah, my apologies.
It's okay. It's okay.
We'll put the link. We'll put the link in the show notes.
Cool. I appreciate it. Yeah. So, it's just an idea I had. I've been chatting with SportsCenter. Actually, the article went out in March, I think, but I had been chatting with them since December, had multiple like hour-long conversations and then emails back and forth. And, with us getting on ESPN and CBS Sports, it's like, okay, obviously this is to a level now where people are taking it a little bit more seriously. It's getting airtime. Like we should make a documentary. This is incredible, like community, and anyone that plays disc golf is like blown away. Just like people are willing to give you the shirt off their back. And, it's just an all inclusive community, and just the flight of the disc is magical. And, so it was kind of just like this idea, this hope that I had that, let's make a documentary. Let's get it in, huge audiences. Let's share it with the world basically. And, after Vegas, I took some time off from competing and I went up to, Utah to practice for Worlds. And I mentioned that in my like interview after the tournament was over. And, there was a filmmaker named Wilson that reached out to me and said like, hey, I heard on your press conference that you're, coming through Utah. I would love to help you film any practice round or something, whatever. And he, his little email signature had his website with his portfolio and all that. And I looked through his website and was like blown away. And I was like, I called him up and I was like, hey, I really don't need you to film any of my practice rounds, but do you have any, experience filming documentaries? And he's like, that's actually what I do. Like I'm a documentarian. And I was like, okay, well, here's my crazy idea. And we met up at the course the next day, did like a 10-hour filming day, and then did it again the following day, and had like a good base and a good feel for how we would work together, what we could create. And just like the level of seriousness that I had kind of inspired him to get a good crew together. And, next thing I knew, they were flying out to, what's the first event they came to? Texas States. So they came out to Texas States, filmed all weekend there. And then they've been at every tournament that I've been at since, and actually even came out to Hawaii to do some interviews and stuff as well. So,
wow.
So this is a huge thing that we're trying to do. And basically it's a working title still. We have no idea what we're going to name it. It's kind of like the storyline is coming and, winding. But for the most part, it's just about disc golf as a whole and the way the disc flies. We actually had interviews with Nate Sexton and Jeremy Colling today separately. And their role is going to be like,
smart to keep them apart.
Yeah. No, I just meant like, it's funny that both of them were today, but yeah, it was separate interviews.
Right.
But they're going to be like talking to the viewer, like, this is the technical, like, this is how it's scored. This is how it flies. Like, and so it's going to be a teaching documentary. It's going to, be behind the scenes of like what tour life is like as a professional. It's going to be all things disc golf. And, basically, I'm just kind of like the vehicle that kind of like shows it, but so yeah, they're out here every week, I said, so that yes, they're filming me, they got me mic'd up and stuff, but they're also going out before I play and going and getting Paul Macbeth and James Conrad and, whoever is making a charge, Simon's comeback, all things. So we're going to have endless hours of footage, and I think it's going to come together really nicely.
Well, let us know when we got the title, and we will drop that breaking story.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. We plan as of right now to be done filming after Worlds, and then, which is the end of June. And then, they'll start editing all of July, all of August. And then, our primary goal right now is to get it into Sundance Film Festival. And the deadline for that is in the middle of September. So they'll have like 2 months. He said that he's going to lock himself into a cave and just try to knock it out in 2 months and try to submit it to Sundance, try to get it, people start talking to people at Netflix and all the streaming platforms, and hopefully even talk to the people at ESPN. So yeah, that's the goal, to get it on major platforms, get it into new eyes. We're not interested really in showing it on Disc Golf Network or my YouTube channel. It's more than that. Yes, we want disc golfers to like it and watch it, but we want to expose the sport to more people and expose the world to disc golf through this.
What was behind your decision to pursue a crowdfunding opportunity as opposed to private funding or, advertising or other options?
Yeah, it was all going to come out of my pocket. And instead of asking my sponsors for, hey, can you give me 20 grand or something like that? This was the best way where they could get a benefit, but also we could, make some money for the movie. So, instead of Discraft donating that much money, they're like, hey, we'll give you 1,000 discs and then you guys can do as you please with that. And so between, the producers and I, we decided, something like Indiegogo would be great for that. If you donate $50, you get this limited edition, will never be made again disc. And yeah, I think it's going really well so far. I think we're at 55% of our goal we've reached in 48 hours. So I feel pretty optimistic in 30 days that we will get the other 40 something percent. And, basically if any of this doesn't get funded, it will come out of my pocket. So, that was kind of the, desire to try to get funds elsewhere without like bleeding my sponsors dry. Can you cut me a huge check? And I think that the people are all super stoked about the perks that we've gotten from all of the sponsors. So it's been a win-win so far. Nobody has been disappointed or anything like that in having to, or not having to, but in the option of it being a crowdfunding project. I don't know. I didn't really think about the advertising aspect. I don't know. But it seems like this is a cool way to go. And a lot of the people now feel like, oh, I helped make this happen. And that's kind of where disc golf is, right? Where we all just help each other. So I think that kind of just shows the community vibe as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to an on-course thing real quick. I mean, we're only a few weeks now from the World Championships. Where's your head at as you get ready to compete there?
It kind of depends on the moment of the day for me. Definitely earlier in the season, I was, especially after Vegas, I said I went to Utah. I played, I think 4 rounds on mulligans and 5 rounds on the fort over that 10 days or whatever that I was there. So I felt like really prepared. I took notes on every hole. I know exactly what disc I'm throwing on every hole. And I kind of read that weekly, if not multiple times a week, when I'm in my van by myself and I'm just like visualizing those shots. And, then I leave Utah and I come to Waco immediately and I'm still thinking about the shots at Utah. And I'm not really focused at all on the shots at Waco. Yes, I got a practice round in, but really my whole brain power was still in Utah. And then I told myself once, I didn't win Waco, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. World's coming up. It doesn't matter. And then I just kept that attitude going for the next few events where like, oh, this tournament doesn't matter. Like what's another pro tour title? Like I don't care about that right now. And that is not my priority. And it just obviously didn't translate well in my scores at those events. And I also realized that even bigger than that, it wasn't allowing me the practice that I needed in focus. And that is something that you need at the World Championship, is to be focused on the task at hand, no matter what that task is, no matter if it's a 50-foot putt or a 300-foot drive. You need to be focused on that shot right there. And I wasn't doing that. I wasn't focusing on that tournament at all. I was actually saying like, I actually don't care about this tournament. And, you know, I decided that if I don't care, don't go. Don't show up. Don't sign up for the tournament if you don't care. If you do care, be there. And so I think that, you know, I kind of went through a little transition of like focusing too hard on Worlds too early. And so I'm trying right now to make sure I'm focused on the disc golf that is tomorrow and not what's a month from now. So I will be going to Utah a couple weeks early. I'm going to actually end up playing the Utah Open, which is like 12 days before Worlds or something like that. Like there's Utah Open and then there's like a off weekend and then Worlds starts on a Tuesday. So I'll be there for like 25 days early or something like that. So I just need to focus on Dela. Yeah, go ahead.
I was say Josh and I were talking about Utah Open and what a strange thing this is going to be to watch a fairly large number of pro players play the Worlds courses at a B tier and then play Worlds. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a good experience for you as a competitor? I, at least in my mind, I don't know of anything like this that's happened in the past where you've had a tournament at the Worlds courses, you know, Worlds. Do you like that this is an option?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think, you know, getting competitive practice rounds in that are, it's one thing to get a really solid day of practice in where you're really focused and you're, okay, this is the shot I'm going to throw. But it's different when it's a tournament. You have to put your mini down. You have to write your score down. You have to, you know, wait for the other players on your card. You can't just putt another putt if you miss. It's a whole different level of practice. And I think that it is definitely going to be beneficial for me, to be there that early and to get these competitive rounds in on the course that we're playing, on the courses that we're playing.
All right. I have one last question, and I just thank you again for giving us as much time as you've given us today, especially after all the interviews you've been doing lately. You came extremely close to catching that 1,000 rating. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you've now regressed back quite a few points. Is that frustrating to you? Do you still have that 1,000 rating?
Yeah, I definitely do. You know, it's just, it's quite a ways away now. So it's very sad. That day, I remember waking up that day and seeing the ratings were updated, and I looked at it and I knew I was going to drop a few points. I was thinking, you know, 7 to 10 points, and I was prepared for that mentally. And then to see it was like, I can't remember, it was like 19 points, I think it was. I was just like, oh, my little heart, you know, it hurt so bad. And, you know, it's just, it was literally 4 tournaments. So what is that? 12 competitive rounds, you know, you know, all these years of hard work and then 12 rounds regressed me that much. So it still is, you know, hard to swallow. But yeah, it's definitely still a goal of mine. It's just now, obviously, that's going to be quite a ways away. So years worth of hard work down the drain.
I don't know about down the drain.
I know, but as far as the rating goes, right?
I get your point. Yeah. All right. Well, Paige, thank you so much. Good luck this weekend at Masters I guess any thoughts on playing at De La and this very historic course?
Yes, I think that again, the courses needed to be closed. It was really, really, really difficult to practice here this week. Practice rounds took 5.5 hours earlier in the week. Today, the course was closed and we got through a round in 3 hours. But earlier in the week, it was taking a very long time. And I know of 5 people that got hit. It's a dangerous course. Yes. And also the top of the world. Yes. Some of them were crossing fairways. One of them was just like a guy that was trying to be out there watching the pros, and he was like underneath this tree and he got hit. But yeah, from the top of the world, it's just such a dangerous hole. But yeah, I think, it's such a famous course that of course all these people want to be out there playing it. But I think that if we play a course for an elite level event, it should be closed at least 2 or 3 days for the pros to practice. So I already talked about all about that for US
There you go.
Yep.
Well, thank you again for stopping by. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, and we'll see you next time.
Paige Pierce with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Paige Pierce for joining us. I didn't really anticipate that interview being an hour long, but it's just Paige has been so candid lately, and not only here but in many other interviews, and it's just, I think it's really important to have somebody kind of at the highest level of the game that's willing to say the things that she's talking about. A lot of times players try to duck the controversy at a lot of the time and just kind of I'm here so I don't get fined kind of approach. And and I understand that, but I sort of appreciate, like, whether you agree with Paige or not, I appreciate her giving her honest opinion about topics.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that the phrase brutally honest is like severe enough to describe Paige's reproach of the PDGA, and I think it's valuable because I think that you hear a lot of critique from amateurs, and I've definitely been in the crowd who's been like, COVID threw a wrench in it, that we've got a lot more people than normal, but I think that it's valuable to have someone at the highest level of the game, the highest representative of FPO, to be speaking power to truth on these things.
Like I said before, stuff is changing fast in disc golf. The PDGA kind of like almost took this hiatus year as the sport doubled all around them, and they haven't caught up, and they need to start to catch up. And I think, it's really easy if you're the PDGA to sit back and say, well, we built what's here, and we have this responsibility to the sport to be this very careful organization, and a lot of that is true. But at the same time, there are things that the PDGA needs to improve upon. The PDGA is not perfect at all times, and I think the players are in unison on these issues about, like, U.S. women's, for example. It's just like, okay, it needs to get better next time. It needs to get better next time. You need to think about how you're going to do it better next time. And, when we have players come on here week after week and say the Pro Tour is better than the PDGA, Pro Tour events are better than the NTs, it doesn't need to be this like head-to-head thing between DGPT and PDGA. But for the pro players, I'm sure that's how it feels. And there needs to be more cooperation and better, overall growth on these issues, because it's not working right now, very clearly.
I think if the PDGA wants to keep having a foot in the pro scene, and I think there's debate about how much they should, right? Should they be running the NT still? Should they just focus on majors? But regardless of what it is,
I think that right now, the PDGA needs the Pro Tour a whole lot more than the Pro Tour needs the PDGA. And it's getting to the point that the Pro Tour is effectively running and governing the pro side of disc golf on its own. And I think the only trump card really that PDGA still is wielding and has and is really going to relinquish is the major title, right? World's, US Championship, US Women's. But I think for them then to so royally mess this up, the one trump card that they have that is their established foot in the door that will always keep them relevant because you have to have majors. If you keep messing that up, I think that it's the very wrong direction for the PDGA.
Well, and here's the thing. We have to zoom out a little bit further than we are in right now and recognize that this is an incredible opportunity for the PDGA and for disc golf to be in a position where it actually all of a sudden feels like the Pro Tour is managing the professional side of the game in an effective way. I mean, you don't have to go back very far for that not to be the case. I mean, like the Pro Tour was happening in 2018, 2019, and it was like a little touch and go there. Yeah. Like it about fell apart. And, it turns out when you just pour money into it and you're in the absolute literal perfect spot to have this big year where you pour money in, you do the paywall thing and the sport doubles in size, and not, to be honest, like where's the causation there? Like some people will probably say, oh, the Pro Tour helped, grow the game. I really think is, COVID is by far the driving factor there. And it's incredibly fortunate for the sport. And so think about it in a positive sense. This is an opportunity now for disc golf to continue on an accelerating upward growth path. And the PDGA no longer has to be all things to all people, which it's not possible to be anyway, as we know. And it's like, okay, the PDGA can say, you know what, NT, you know what? I'm going to save some of my thoughts for our 2022 schedule conversation, and we will do it in our subscriber bonus. There are ways for this to work out well. And, just off the schedule topic, like the PDGA doesn't have to do all of these professional events anymore. It's not really their core competency anyway. And focusing more on the AM side of the game is for the benefit of the sport, in my opinion. Like the PDGA doing more for the youth, more for growing the game in underrepresented demographics. Like there are initiatives going towards these things, which is great. It's just we're at a time where there's this kind of weird, like PDGA still operating as though things are the way they were 5 years ago, and it's just that so much has changed.
And you're right. This is an opportunity for I think a realignment in the balancing of the disc golf world in a way that I think is desperately needed. I think the reason why it's so hard. I think the reason why it's hard to see the optimism now is that the PDGA didn't come forward and say, you're right, we royally messed this up. We saw PDGA representatives like slamming Pierce, and it just feels, I hope that they take the most of this opportunity. I hope that it balances. I'm struggling to see that silver lining, and it's not that I don't see it. It's hard to pull that to the forefront after this weekend.
I mean, there's just, in general in disc golf, there's way too much circle the wagons attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You see it with the manufacturers, you see it at the PDGA. Like any criticism is seen as, they're against us and, we're going to fight back. And that is just not a productive approach. It's just not. And like, I can understand it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? Maybe when you're hearing from many professional FPO players that there's a problem, there's a problem, right? I mean, come on, there's a fucking problem. So anyway, we'll leave it there. Very interesting. Always great to hear from Paige. Please send us your thoughts. We're going to be doing a mailbag episode soon, so hit us up, upshot@ultiworld.com. Latest Ultiworld Disc Golf Power Rankings came out this past week before the U.S. Women's Championship.
I just thought it'd be a nice time for us to check in and kind of see where do things stand in the power rankings right now. And I think, after this weekend, do you put Paige back at number 1? I think you probably do. Winning a major, typically going to push you well up the rankings. But at least as of last week, Katrina Allen was your number 1 ranked player in FPO, having a great season. Haley King in second, Paige Pierce in third. We talked about it a little bit before. Missy Gannon continuing to play really well. Well, she's 4th in the power rankings. And it's an interesting position because as we've discussed, Missy hasn't really been in the mix for winning a tournament, but has consistently been in that top 5 range pretty much week in and week out, like very consistent. And Macy Walker all the way up into 5th place after her recent strong run of play. And, elsewhere in the FPO power rankings, what stands out to you, Josh?
I think the big thing that stands out to me is, there's 2 things. The first is Sarah Hokum in 11th. That's quite a drop for who is the 3rd highest rated player in the world, or 5th, I think, like tied for 5th. I forgot with the European women. I think it's fair to say that Sarah Hokum is underperforming, from what I think is typical Sarah Hokum. And that's not to say she doesn't have good tournaments, but I think 11th is awfully far down for Sarah Hokum. And so that's first thing that sticks out to me. Second thing that sticks out to me, though, Juliana Korver, 14th place. That is, I think it's exciting. I love seeing that. So those are 2. Also, I think Ella Hansen at 19. I think she's going to move up from that. So,
oh my gosh, quick,
yeah,
flying up the table right now. Lots of new names in the mix. I mean, Holland Handley, someone who got some buzz before the season, she's in at 22 this week. Camille Square as well at number 24. So some new names getting in there. And, some stalwart names not making the top 25. Vanessa Van Dyken dropped out. Ellen Widboom dropped out. I think it's a sign. It's similar to Sarah Hokum falling outside of the top 10. I think it's a sign of the growth of the game with this new, younger, versatile set. I was talking to a guy at the craps table yesterday. Yeah, I guess yesterday. That's crazy. And he was in Las Vegas for a bowling tournament. He was probably in his 50s. He says he's a great bowler. He said he was a professional for a number of years, and that now it's gotten really hard to like stay on the road and be a bowler because the kids coming up are just so good. The technology is improving. The skill set is improving. The coaching is improving. And I don't know anything about professional bowling, but it sounds a lot like disc golf. The sports are always evolving. The new players coming up are ever better at all facets of the sport. And we've talked on the show recently about how, you have to have backhand and forehand now. And all of the players coming up have that. And so when you're seeing these new names coming up, this is part of that to me. It's like there's always somebody who's 22 and has been playing for 7 years coming up, and they're going to join the tour. And it's going to get ever harder to kind of like stay up at the top of the pack as that happens. Over in MPO, your number 1 ranked player has not changed. It's still Ricky Wysocki, but Eagle McMahon has made some big moves. He's now in number 2, moving up 4 spots after his recent play. Paul Macbeth in 3rd place, stays in 3rd. Calvin Heimberg drops back just a little bit down into 4th place. And how about James Conrad at number 5? He's coming off the strong play at the OTB Open. So there's your top 5 in MPO right now. What stands out to you here, Josh?
So before we do that, I got a question for you, Charlie. I know that this is a composite of a bunch of things, but who did you put as your number 5 for MPO?
Oh gosh, I'd have to go back and look at my ballot probably to answer that question for you, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I had those top 4 guys probably in that order or close to it. I think I had Dickerson in 5th, though.
You had
personally.
Dickerson. Okay,
I think,
all right.
I think I did.
I think when I look at these power rankings, the top 4, I'm like, yes, Ricky, Eagle, Paul, Calvin. Any of those 4 are going to win any given tournament. Have we had anyone break into a major or like an elite series or a national tour event yet besides those 4?
Nico,
you're right. Yep, Nico. Thank you, Waco. Okay, so those 4, I mean, they're dominating it right now.
They're dominating.
They really, truly are, and it's hard to. When you do a power rankings, it's hard not to just keep those top 4 and then shuffle a 5th one in occasionally. But what I will say is I think that the next even 5 players after that, at least 6 players, 7 players, are all interchangeable in the question of who's number 5. And maybe not quite down to 7, but on any given weekend, Kevin, Drew, Nico, Chris, Adam, James, I think any of those guys could take 5th without problem. I think any of those guys could win a tournament, and I would not be overwhelmingly shocked. And I think that right now the battle is who there's 2 battles going on. There's the battle of the top 4,
Sure.
right, trying for utter domination of the top the top tier. And then you have your second tier, and it's funny because we used to talk, of course they're in the top tier as well. They could win any major tournament, elite series tournament, and so they obviously deserve consideration in the top tier professionals. But I think those next 6 names are vying for the last spot in the conversation of power rankings moving forward. And so that's the interesting battle I feel shaping up.
Yeah, like what is hypothetical random tournament? What are the odds that somebody other than Ricky, Paul, Calvin, Eagle wins?
I mean, you want me to put a number on that? Like,
Put a number on it.
I would say like 5%.
I think that's about right. I think I might have said 10,
That's fair.
but like it's just tough to outcompete all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tough. And yeah, I mean, I think if you include Chris Dickerson, then it gets even more remote. I mean, Chris hasn't won a tournament yet this year, but he's been, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, bunch of times. Obviously, it happens. It happens, and it will happen again. But it really, it's like those 4 have clearly separated themselves, not just this year, but over like 2 to 3 seasons at this point. Very, very interesting. Elsewhere in the power rankings, I think the sort of like the notable stuff, Anthony Barella coming out from outside the top 25, not even ranked last time, to 11th. He's really been able to take advantage of these bomber courses. And gosh, the potential that Anthony Barella has just like oozes from his pores. If he can lock in the consistency, he could be one of those guys that sits up there in that top 5. A lot of new names this week. Benjamin Callaway, 16. Joel Freeman, 17. Gavin Rathbun, number 21. He's been playing great. And how about Brody Smith, number 22? And that's not a fluke. By the way these power rankings work, it's a composite of rankings from Multi-World Disc Golf contributors. We rank the top 10, and then an algorithm that is, decays over time. So older events drop off or are weighed less heavily. Because again, they're power rankings. It's not like who is the best player on the earth, right? People will probably say Paul for a long time, and that's fine. But this is like, what have you done for me lately? So the algorithm picks the next 15 players. So the algorithm is saying, hey, Brody Smith, number 22. And it feels right. He's really been in that top 25 mix and beating other professional players.
Yep.
Some notable names have dropped out of the top 25. Jeremy Colling, Eric Oakley, Matt Bell, Emerson Keith, Nathan Queen, Brian Earhart, and Bradley Williams, who were all ranked last time, but they have dropped out. And that goes to show you, you gotta compete week in and week out to be up in the top 25 mix. And we see different players have maybe different strengths and weaknesses exposed by different parts of the tour. So people who play really well in Texas may not fare as well in California. Different style courses. And we're going to see Andrew Fish get at the top 25 when we go out to the East Coast,
Yeah.
So interesting times. And, we're coming up. We're less than a month from Worlds now. So throw the power rankings out, throw the rankings out, throw the ratings out. When it comes time for Worlds, it doesn't matter. Blank slate, baby.
The one other thing of note, I think, is that our young MPO players have begun to slide a little bit. The ones who were talking and hyping at the beginning of the season, they're all kind of sliding down a bit, except, and I mean, he is sliding, but Casey White, still 13th, leads that pack. Kyle Klein, 19th. Gavin Rathbun, 21st. Ezra Aderhold, 23rd. So they're still on there. They still got their names on there. I think, though, that we're seeing a little bit of a revert back to the mean kind of thing in terms of the young guys who are just haven't done it as long. They don't have the experience. You don't have the tour experience, and settling into
and regress to their rating.
Yep.
Masters Cup coming up this weekend, the Santa Cruz Masters Cup. This is the staple. This is where it all began. National Tour back on the schedule here. The couple notable things about it: no live coverage this weekend. There's a story up on Ulti World Disc Golf about it. The Disc Golf Network folks spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way to get enough cellular signal to make it possible, but this has been a notable dead zone for cell service for a long time at De La Vega. So there will be no live coverage this weekend. A couple players taking this weekend off as well. Eagle McMahon will not be there. Chris Dickerson will not be there. But, this is still like a really classic event. And it's funny. We're going to talk more in our sub bonus this week about what should the 2022 tour look like. And I think we'll probably set aside the question of whether, the Pro Tour does everything or there's still a DGPT and NTs or whatever. But just like what tournament should be on tour and what should the structure be. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Masters Cup. Because I will say, even though we can't get live coverage this weekend, there's something that I like about these really classic West Coast events. Even if, sure, the course maybe isn't quite at the caliber of the sort of top level professional courses today. You can't have the live coverage, but this is the roots of the sport. This is the roots of the sport. And I don't think you want to just abandon that stuff simply because it doesn't fit, today's game perfectly. Masters Cup should be an important tournament that professionals attend because of that. I like the fact that there's this course that kind of has this old school vibe, and it's oh, did you get a brutal rollaway down the hill? Well, so did I. Last time I went out and played. I get it. We don't want all the courses to look like this. We don't want to have this be the norm where we can't watch it live. But I do feel that there's something special about some of these events. And some of them the Memorial, I don't really care that it's gone. But this tournament feels like it needs to remain a part of the tour, even if it never gets the full treatment of, live coverage and everything else.
I completely agree. I go back regularly, every 3 months, and I watch 2017 Masters Cup when it was that pouring rain, and they're just soaked to the bone, and De La ate their lunch. I love watching that tournament. I love watching De La. You're right. It isn't. It's probably not when that much is left to the course. When the course is literally feels like a player who's playing against you. That's not quite the feeling that we get from a lot of our modern tournaments. I think De La Viega though is it's just a course that I think it would be amiss to lose that course, to lose the value I think that there is in post coverage from De La. And I hope that the Masters Cup, I wait for this tournament every year, and I'm so excited to watch it. So
I mean, man, it's just classic. Like,
it is
24 holes, all this crazy elevation, like more randomness than most courses. And like some of those things, I think some players look at as negatives. Like, I haven't seen if Eagle has said anything about why he's not going to play this weekend, but maybe, just trying to take time off, get ready for Worlds. Eagle tends to take more tournaments off than most players. But also maybe he just doesn't care for the course. I mean, and that's fair enough. I think it's still just like, you want to remember the roots. You want to remember the history of the sport. And as much as we talked about change today, there is still value in the history and preserving like elements like this, where it's like, hey, good luck on this very different style of course. There's something special about Masters Cup. It's always felt to me like one of the most important NTs, maybe the most important. And I mean, it's been an NT for, who knows how long, like forever, maybe since year one, and it's never been off the NT. It's just like a staple. They're not playing the golf course this year, by the way, the ball golf layout. They're only playing on De La, and I'm excited about that personally. I think, they did the golf course thing because they wanted to have the more spectator-friendly, open style course that we've seen a lot of other tournaments adopt. But that, to me, just like removes what's fun and interesting about this tournament. So, like, why not just commit? Like, you're not going to have live coverage? You're not going to have live coverage. Like, okay. Like, I'm not going to die if I can't watch live disc golf one weekend. There's so much live disc golf these days. So, you just do the De La thing. We all get to enjoy watching the ups and downs of playing that course. And it really demands placement, shot shaping, and particularly how you land your disc on the green. How, not just where, but how. And I think that that's a really cool element of disc golf.
Yeah, completely agree. The one thing I am going to disagree with you on there, I am quick to critique golf courses. I was quick to critique the OTB Open. I don't like ball golf courses. I don't. And I know that it's not a unique sentiment to me. I think they are getting better. I am going to say, though, I actually liked the Masters Cup ball golf course. I don't know why, but I thought it was one of the better designed ones. And so it's funny. And if it was any other tournament than the Masters Cup at De La Viega, I would also be sad that it's not the third round. Like, I would also be, I would be sad that it's moving away from the golf course, because it's actually the only golf course, really, and one of the only, that I'm like, I am excited to watch around on the disc on the ball golf course, and not just I need to do this because I know we're going to talk about it.
So what makes, in your mind, what makes it better than the typical course designs?
I think a couple of things. One, I think they still have a lot of greens that require landing, how you land your shots. I can't pull out whole numbers, but I can think of two in particular. You got one that's a pretty, like, almost tunnel shot over a path that places a river the entire way, and the green is up on a hill on the left with a slope right next to it that leads back down to that river path. Like, getting the two on that hole requires, one, a level of aggression that I think can be punished, which on ball golf courses, and this was a critique written, I think in an article by Chris on the Ulti World, was that OTB, even though it was a hard course, didn't punish aggressive birdies. You could go aggressive for a birdie and get away with a lot of things.
I think that the one thing that I like about it is it does punish those aggressive birdies on several holes. The second hole that I really like is it's a real long hyzer shot that it takes a lot of distance to get to. Up above is hazard play, and so you have to putt down out of the hazard on a steep downhill into a sand trap behind the basket or a golf green behind the basket if you miss. So the first thing I like is it punishes aggressive birdies chances that you can get out of position on this ball golf course.
There's risk reward.
Yeah, there is. There actually is risk reward, not just the risk is you have to lay up for your
Not
birdie.
just reward. Can you go far? Reward.
Right, exactly. So that's first thing I don't like, or I do like about it. And the second thing is that the greens are still interesting. I think a lot of ball golf courses have pretty open standard, just throw your putt kind of green. And hole 18 of that course is right next to the water, like on the edge of the water. And it's a question of how tight you want to get, because then you have to make a putt from distance over water. So that's the second thing I like about it. And the third thing is I think it's very picturesque. I think it's got unique like trees and foliage. Yeah, the aesthetic is great on that course, and I can't say that about all ball golf courses. OTB definitely can. I like the aesthetic of OTBs.
Yes.
And that's another part that I like about it. So De La Viega is a one-of-a-kind course, and I love watching players just get destroyed by rollaways. It's not professional or kind of me, but I love it. I do think, though, that the golf course is something that's worth modeling after.
Well, we'll see what happens. If I recall, there was some reason they couldn't use the golf course this year. Perhaps I'll bring it back in the future. We'll see how it all plays with 3 rounds at De La. Tournament starts on Friday, and let's go through our picks. I'm gonna just rip through these today. Here's who I got in FPO. In 5th, I have Missy Gannon. 4th, Sarah Hokum. 3rd, Haley King. 2nd, Paige Pierce. 1st, Katrina Allen. I think that this is a course that sets up really well for Katrina. She played very, very well here the last time this tournament was played. I think ended up winning by 7 strokes over Paige Pierce. And I think, Paige has probably spent a lot of time focusing on U.S. women's. Maybe it's time to start picking Paige every week again. But I do think that Katrina's going to get the win this weekend.
I think it's a fair pick. 5th place, I'm giving Holly Finley the nod. I think she's done great so far. I think she can keep it rolling. I've got Missy Gannon in 4th, Katrina Allen in 3rd. Putter looked off again, and I'm worried that that's going to hinder her again. So if she can bounce back this week, I think it'll be great. I think she'll be strong, but that was my reservation. Haley King in 2nd, and I have taken Paige Pierce off the podium one too many times, especially in the last 2 weeks, and I won't do it again because I've been busy cleaning the egg off my face, and I think this week I'm going to just put her up top because she's earned it. She's earned it back, and I'm going to give it to her.
How about your MPO picks?
MPO, I've got James Conrad in 5th. Paul Macbeth in 4th. That would have been a hot take. Paul Macbeth in 4th. I've got Ricky in 3rd. Ricky does well at this tournament, so I know it's a little bit of a change down there. I'm sticking with my Adam Hammis pick until it pays off because, he hasn't let me down. He's still playing well. Adam Hammis 2nd place, and this feels like Calvin Heimberg's week.
All right. I do have Yuli in my top 5 at number 5. So he plays well here.
He does.
I have Calvin Heimberg in 4th. I've got Double G in 3rd. Double G, don't forget, won this tournament in 2019. This was the year like he pulled it off. And it's kind of funny because it doesn't feel like the tournament that he would win. It's not like Giant Open Bomber really.
He did have the golf course.
He did have the golf course, and he did play really well on the golf course, and that will not be there for him. But I still think, he showed that he can play really well at De La as well. So I've got him in 3rd. I have Paul Macbeth in 2nd, and I have Ricky in 1st. Ricky has played great at De La. I think last time this tournament was played, he shot one of the best rounds of at De La, 59. Crazy score in round 1. And I think if he can keep that rolling, that he can take it down this time around. And he's in better form than he was in 2019, no question.
Absolutely.
So there's our picks, and that's our show. Make sure you join us for our subscriber bonus segment, where we talk about the 2022 schedule. What should it look like? How is it going to change? And, we got a new major coming. There's a bunch of stuff to kind of figure out. And like, how should those puzzle pieces fit together? So join us for that. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the Upshot. 2X.